build a home or a hotel, a traditional farm or a server farm? Introducing Hacienda Castilla. St. Matthew's Assurance presents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Over 800 square miles of pristine, uninhabited coastal property in central Chile, ready for industrial, business, and residential development. Hacienda Castilla features almost unlimited open spaces and some of the most beautiful beaches in South America. With parcels ranging from 20 acres to over 200 acres, Hacienda Castilla will be adjacent to Copia Port A, the deepest natural port in all of South America. Experience future-forward development limited only by your imagination. What will you create at Hacienda Castilla? Become part of something completely new. For more, visit haciendacastilla.net today.
Hello, Vaxxchoice community. Thank you so much for joining us today for another live episode of Truth Be Told, hosted by Todd Callender. How are you doing today, Todd?
It's live and it's Friday. How much better could it get?
Right. Yes, I'm excited for this weekend. Except I'm in Kansas, and there's still snow on the ground, and it's like 12 degrees. But other than that, it's good.
Well, that explains it. Yeah, I don't have any snow, so I'm not fighting snow plows or snowballs, as the case may be. So today, Glenn Baker, a pal, a musician, a filmmaker, and he's brought some, I guess, a posse with him, for lack of a better word. This is going to be really fun and interesting. Two-tier justice, amongst other things. Poor guy got arrested what looked like his underwear, and this story is interesting. People are going to enjoy listening to this, and Glenn's just a cool guy. I don't know how he kept his cool like that. I wouldn't have. I would have been in jail for a long time. Anyway, this is going to be fun.
Yes, it is. And we've also got Tavis Conover, Craig Sawyer, and Nate Cain and Joshua Holm as well. That so far I've got to talk to them before the show, and I'm excited to hear about all what they've got to say. They're helping revamp the movie industry and making it less Hollywood and more probably patriotic and godly, which I look forward to. So I'm not going to waste any more time, Todd. I'm going to be in the background during the show, and I'll be back at the end for questions.
Okay, good. Thank you, Melissa. And I'll do my best to get through the monologue quickly, but also we'll probably run a little bit late today because there's so much information these guys have to share. It's really helpful, I think, to all of us to understand the perspective, and then also get some tips. How do you avoid certain circumstances like this? How do we bring our country out of the pitfalls that we have found? Which is really that there are demons in charge of all organs of our government. I see Mr. Trump cleaning them up already. God love him. I wasn't sure how much he was going to do and how quickly. He did a very good job of hiding exactly what his plans were. And then, man, he's let it fly, including a little bit of not an attack. Yeah, I guess you'd call it that, on the Federal Reserve, the private central banking system that owns the world, including our government, BlackRock, etc., are invested in every country around the world. Alex Jones has a pretty good clip on this, and I have to admit, I was kind of surprised to hear this. The reporter asks Jerome the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome, whatever his name is. Sorry. Anyway, hear it for yourself. This is how powerful the Federal Reserve is. They are beyond the reach of the president, and he says so openly. Let's hear what he says.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
Just no. I'm not going to go anywhere. And he says it with such conviction, just plain old no. Doesn't explain anything to the reporter because he doesn't have to. Why? Because they own those news agencies as they own the other ones. they're beyond the reach. So people think that the Federal Reserve is a government enterprise. It is not. It is the enterprise that controls our government. Jerome Powell had a brain cramp, don't know why. And I think this next clip actually shows a little bit how it is. This is actually not a clip. This is just a piece of paper that comes from InfoWars. Go ahead and throw it up as a story. And effectively what's happening is Mr. Trump has outlawed central bank digital currency in our country. Now, that's a huge win. Why? Because the government was seeking to control, not just ours, but all governments, control your spending with programmable money. And Mr. Trump says, we ain't doing that. God love him. That is a huge win because that is tied into the digital ID, the digital U, the mRNA nanobots. They were planning to use FTX in the Bahamas. I know because we're right next to them. And they were going to trade carbon credits that your body makes, debits and credits based on your bodily functions. That was the plan, tied to central bank digital currencies. If you ate too much meat, they'd cut you off. If you traveled too far, they'd cut you off. If you didn't get permission, they'd cut you off. All of this was supposed to be run by AI. And now with this, for Mr. Trump, he has effectively cut him off at the knees. Without that central bank digital currency to control your spending, they cannot control you, or at least not as much. And now you see Klaus Schwab is panicked. Mr. Trump went in front of the World Economic Forum yesterday, and his speech can only be described as bitch slapping Klaus Schwab. It was fabulous. If you haven't seen it, look it. But watch this clip. It's pretty interesting.
Hey folks, Donald Trump Jr. here with urgent news. The world's central banks are making...
Oh, Lord.
Did you know there is a natural coffee ritual that outperforms Ozempic that Big Pharma doesn't want you to discover?
Care for the next generation fails. We risk depending into self-serving and short-sighted behaviors that undermine collective progress and lead to profound societal and political shifts. To counter the erosion of hope and confidence in our future, we must go beyond reacting just to crisis. We must focus proactively, shaping the future in strategic, innovative, and constructive ways, despite the intense, short-term pressures and problems which we all feel. It is not cynicism or negativism which brings us forward, but practical steps to address the real-world challenges, what we want to do here.
Those ads are really frustrating to me, and I imagine they are to you. So please keep in mind, we don't have those at CloutHUB. If you want to watch the content, you get it here without all that nonsense. Klaus, you are not welcome at CloutHUB. I just don't like you. If you happen to post or something, so be it. We don't censor, not even you. But you're unwelcome on this planet. You and your commie pals can go away. We're not having it. And even though you use your directed energy weapons to burn people out of California, help is on the way. Mr. Trump is headed out there to go save the Californians. God bless you, sir. There's a clip on this one, too.
In California, as he promised to put a spotlight on Newsom and announce federal executive orders he will sign in California. I have this from the sources. This hasn't been announced yet. Overriding the federal bureaucrats and the state under a fire emergency executive order to restart fire mitigation and the release of the aquifer, release of the mountain reservoirs, and he will then expose everything they've done and go down the list. And Newsom's bragging about his special emergency commission so he can investigate himself and cover it up and then get the $275 billion they're reportedly going to get that Biden promised. And that Trump is going to announce a federal investigation and direct a federal investigation.
Yeah, that's half of it, Alex. The fire is half of it. This is really about smart cities, 15-minute cities, C40 cities. where they want people in concentrated housing, sitting there playing video games and eating crickets while your bodily functions are being harvested for energy and cloud computing. And Ellison knows this. Who's the guy? Larry Ellison, Mr. Oracle. He's right there. And you've invited him into the tent, Mr. Trump. I hope you've got a plan for this, because he is also one of those digital ID guys. And that $500 billion investment with this guy is for track and trace. This is for digital ID. And it's not just the United States of America. This is global. Show the piece from India. He's over there getting money, $2.5 billion for our poor Indian friends who are also getting looped into this whole thing. So it's a global approach, Mr. Trump. It's about hooking people into the metaverse. That's what this is about. And I'm not joking when they say, you'll own nothing and be happy and you can eat crickets and such and play video games. Thank you, Noah Harari. That is their intention. We are batteries, power sources, and cloud computing nodes to them, and nothing else. So when you aid and abet Mr. Ellison and all the rest of these gangsters, it is for our control. It is for our subjugation. It is for our slavery. Ladies and gentlemen, this has got to get undone, because otherwise you end up in the very same scenario that our guest Glenn Baker was in. He's going to tell you about it, but he gets picked up for no reason, spends like 70-something days in jail for no reason, and nobody can tell him anything. And worse, nobody cares. That's the problem. Humanity has been taken out of government. Nobody's checking. We're going to hear it from himself here in a minute. He's brought along some friends to talk about it. He made a movie about it. I really appreciate the title, Finish This Fight. Glenn, with that said, welcome to Truth Be Told. Pal, I am happy to have you here. I got to tell you how much I admire you. You are one of the coolest cats I know, because I would have lost my freaking mind. God. So welcome. Dude, tell us about yourself, and then bring in your guests when you
Man, I appreciate your hospitality. We're going to have a great time today. So my name is Glenn Baker. I sing a little country music now. Was out of that business for 17 years, but through all this stuff that took place, God called me back to it. Have written a few songs, got a few recordings out, some of them playing more around the world than in the U.S. because they're not politically correct. Most of what I write, sing, and produce, God and country, in the process of filming a music video this summer, God whispered to me to go ahead, and he wanted me to produce a movie. And
fabulous.
Well, you know what? I guess it is. But he said that. I never thought I'd do anything like this, Todd. This is way out of my wheelhouse. And he said, son, I want you to do a movie. I said, what? He said, boy, you heard me. Don't act like you didn't hear me. And I just said, yes, sir, let's do it. And so we got it done.
Yes, sir.
But,
well, I want to know how you did that, because just to kind of set the framework here is that you are in your house. Everything's a normal day. You're just hanging out in your shorts. The next thing you know, some cop shows up and arrests you and carts you away. While you're in jail, you get your house effectively robbed of all the furniture. Your car is stolen. Your former business partner ripped you off. And yet, despite all of that, you find it in you somehow and the wherewithal to make a movie and pay for it. That is no small feat. And I have to say, in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, when God asks you to do something, he does provide a way and the resources. How did you pull all that off? And maybe just tell us a little bit about that.
Quick rundown, because we covered all in the movie. But 2017, I'd been back in Fort Lauderdale for 3 years. I was out of the state for 2 years, was running a company in North Carolina, creating log homes from a mill. Did that for a couple of years. Had a contractor rip me off about $33,000. Ended up handing the company back to an original owner who was a retired pastor, 49 years in the pulpit. And I gave him some clients to go with it that I'd gotten pre-approved to build. I came back to Florida, rebuilt my life insurance agency. So that was July 2014. July 2017, getting ready to go out and work and wearing nothing but a pair of gym shorts and flip-flops. And I got a knock on my door about 4:30 in the afternoon. I opened the door, and Todd, there was a swarm of cops there, around 10 cops in SWAT gear and SWAT trucks around me. And crazy long.
For a nonviolent crime, by the way, you didn't even know what the crime was.
No.
For a long time, but this is a nonviolent crime, and you got swatted.
Yeah, got swatted. They told me it was a domestic disturbance call. Ended up luring me outside of the house, handcuffed me, put me in a jail cell in Fort Lauderdale. Was there for 23 days. Didn't even see a judge for the first 8 days. Wouldn't allow me to access a cell phone to call any number, get any numbers. I didn't have anything memorized. And 23 days there, and then was extradited to North Carolina. Again, no attorney for the first 23 days at all. Had no idea why I'd been arrested. Ended up in North Carolina, where I found out that former business partner had embezzled 22 grand from one of the clients that I'd given him when I left the company. Thought I would get out pretty quickly after that, and that pretty quickly turned into 51 more days. So a total of 73 days in 2 separate jail cells. Did have representation once I got to North Carolina. So again, it's kind of a long story. Go through it in the movie, but I ended up getting myself out kind of by threatening that attorney, telling him what a crappy job he'd done, and then the next day all of a sudden they let me out. The day before it was going to be there a year and a half, but when I threatened them, they let me out on my signature. And
this is the problem. Hang on. I want people to understand this. There's a raft of laws that apply here, including something called the Unlawful Detainers Act. They can't hold you. Your constitutional rights say that you've got to be charged within a certain period of time. You've got to be provided the evidence against you. None of those things happened. They didn't even know why for a very long time you were being arrested, extradited, or held. I'm just blown away at the apathy of our court system. And it goes back to this whole idea that people are just kind of apathetic and plodding along, and they don't give a damn about you. That care for humanity is gone. Was. How do we get that back?
That's what we're working on. And I think you're right. A big part of the problem in the U.S. and the reason we are where we are in this country is because apathy and complacency. And truthfully, Todd, my whole life, I'm 57 years old. I turned 50 in a jail cell, an 8x10 jail cell. I turned 50 years old in a jail cell. And up to that point in my life, freedom had been easy. It just was. I was born in 67, born into a time when, freedom was pretty easy. Vietnam was over by the time I was old enough to know any better. The price had been paid. I just walked through life, man. And I was one of those complacent people too. If I saw something that I didn't like, I'm thinking, somebody else will fix that. Well, no, guess what, baby? We're at a point now, somebody else ain't going to fix it. You got to get up off your butt and be part of the solution. Or if you don't, you're part of the problem.
So that's where this story changes, right? This experience then motivated you to do some other things, including reestablish your music career. And then you got involved in other people that have similar problems. I think that's one of the reasons you've got your guests here today.
It is.
But I want people to understand that it shouldn't have to be your own personal incarceration to make you care. Right. I mean, this kind of stuff, if it isn't stopped, will be used against everybody.
It will be. And when you said, they can't do what they did to me, well, they did do.
They did.
Finding out that they're doing it all over the country. This is not an unnormal and out of the ordinary circumstance. It happens a lot.
And nobody seemed to care. Not the deputies, not the guards in the jail, not the judge, not the public defender. Nobody.
Business as usual. And see, that's the scary part. If what happened to me is business as usual, then it's happening to a lot of people that we don't hear about, that don't have access to tell their story. Most people go through what I went through. Not most. There's a percentage. I don't know what that number is, but there's a percentage of people that would go through what I went through and they would just quit. Their lives were done because by the time I got home, Todd, I'd lost my home. My car had been repossessed. 80% of my life insurance business was gone. And the night after I got home, an infection that I'd caught in that jail cell went into my right eye and destroyed my cornea and blinded my right eye. So people would just lay down. God built me a little different, brother. I am 5'4" on a good day, which means I've got to be a fighter all my life.
I can imagine.
And if you're going to beat me, you're going to have to work for beating me. And so, God restored me. He brought me back up out of that, called me back to music, has given me a mission. And now that mission has gotten much bigger, and we've developed the Finish This Fight movie. But Finish This Fight is a brand, and this is developing into a foundation. And we're going to do some amazing things across the country, sir. We need a little help getting it done, but we're going to do some amazing things across this country.
Well, I think people watching will support that. You're just going to have to let us know. And by the way, for all of you that face something like this in the future, because you're going to, if we don't turn it around, the statute is 42 United States Code Section 1983. That's a violation of your civil rights. And you should get the names and numbers and as much evidence as you can of everybody that violated your civil rights, your constitutional rights. And I understand you didn't know that at the time. That's what I'm telling people now. 42 USC 1983 is the statute. So with that said, why don't you bring on your guests? Tell us about them and how it is they interplay into this new.
Well, sure. Let's talk first about the movie and how we got it done.
Sure.
So I had last July decided to go do a music video. Ended up was going into Georgia. Found this next gentleman who owns a movie production company in North Georgia. He and I hit it off. I sent him the song. He's like, yeah, I don't normally do music videos, but I want to do yours. So let me introduce to you Tavis Conover, the owner-director of Storyteller Film Company in Woodstock, Georgia. Hey, Tavis, welcome to join us.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, man.
I imagine so. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you met Glenn and what happened.
Yeah, I've been, in the industry, film industry for a little over a decade now, and just started as an actor, and then I kind of worked my way into writing, and then realized no one was going to make my films if I didn't, right? So I started directing and producing and just learning kind of every single side of the industry and really just diving in headlong and working my rear end off to get where I am today. But I had a friend who was interested in investing in my in an academy that I'm creating. It's opening this year, Storyteller Film Academy. It's kind of a revolutionary schooling platform for the education for the entertainment industry. And she was like, hey, I have somebody that may want to invest in it. So I was talking to a woman named Shannon Weimer. And it was the first time I had met her. She was like, man, this is amazing. I want to get involved. She goes, let's talk in a couple days. Well, in that couple day stretch, somebody had introduced her to Glenn. So I met her on maybe like a Monday, and like on a Thursday, Glenn met her. So it was all at the same time. Really a God thing, how it all came together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, hey, I want to make a music video. I had somebody that said they wanted to do it. They were going to do it. They've been directing for a long time. I think it was one of the gentlemen that was on Dukes of Hazzard, actually. And it just didn't feel right. The timing wasn't right. It didn't work out. And Shannon had said to Glenn, I think I know a guy that can do this for you. I know a guy. So it was just kind of an amazing divine connection that was made. And he called me up, and within like 15 minutes of talking, he goes, you want to do it? And I was like, let me think about it. Send me the song. So he sent me the song, and he mentioned it earlier. I don't normally do music videos. A lot of times they're kind of soulless. They don't really have a good message. A lot of songs that come out today are just, generic, put it in a synthesizer and then it makes a sound, right? And I'm just not interested in that. So I'm really into storytelling. That's why my company's named Storyteller. So
very good.
When he showed me the song, it's about, a battle buddy, or it's about someone signing up, going to war, meeting their battle buddy the day they sign up. They go through trainings together, they go to war together, and the battle buddy dies. And it's a beautiful song. And it's so many soldiers were on set, and as they heard the song for the first time, I mean, guys are weeping. They're like, this is my story. This happened to me. And I just knew that it was the right thing. It was the right project to take on. And then halfway through the music video, we're shooting we had tons of footage. We shot a whole war scene, and we had 15 or 20 different locations. I mean, it's a small movie. It's awesome. And he looks at me, he goes, I think there's something else here. I go, okay, let's talk about that when the time is right. And about a week later, after we finished shooting, I made the first draft of the music video. He goes, man, I just heard God tell me that we're supposed to do a documentary. And I was like, wow. Well, what's it about? And he goes, I don't know. Which is, that's how Glenn is, right? He's like, I just heard God say it, so I'm going to do it. I'm just going to put my head down and run as fast as I can towards it. And hopefully it works out. And I said, well, it's going to cost a good amount of money, right? Like I'm going to be working hard at this and we're going to have to do a lot. And he goes, well, let's just do it. So this man, look, I just want to say this while on air. I just honor this guy so much because he's got so much faith. He's got so much dedication to the cause. And you're going to meet Joshua Holm here in a little while. We'll talk more about the cause outside of just spreading the message of what happened to him and DOJ corruption, mainstream media corruption, and just all of the lies that have been told in our country. Like this movie hits a lot of resonating notes for people that already kind of know what's going on. But I think we tell it in a humorous way. So I think other people can digest the information as well and actually learn something new from it and be able to receive it. I think the problem with like just going and watching, InfoWars, and they do amazing stuff, but it's pretty harsh. When you watch it, it's hard to digest the information.
Well, it is. You don't always feel like taking it in. And I get your point about the humor. It is humorous, and you sit there and you're really captivated about this story. So you did a good job of that. I hope people take away the tragedy part of it too, because it's easy watching. But I think something you said a minute ago is really important because it's how I operate too, and that is in faith. And if there ever needed a time for humanity to find its faith, it is now. So I find that to be also a very compelling part of the story. Is you had no idea how you guys were going to pay for this, and somehow God provides.
Yeah, and it's important for people to see this, and it's important for people to share it, especially share it with people that don't know this information, because this is a way for them to see it and actually digest it and take it in. There's a lot of humor in here. So what we do is we set you up. It's a bait and switch. We bait you with some humor, and then we hit you with the truth, and it's really powerful.
Like it worked out beautifully. It's really
well.
Fun
I do have a disclaimer too, because part of my story was told in a way that Travis pressured me into doing a topless scene in this movie, and my disclaimer: it was not a casting couch thing or anything like that. You got to do this to tell the story. So my fat butt at 56 years old took my shirt off.
Yeah. Don't worry, man. You'll be on Time's cover as the sexiest man. You're doing fine, Glenn.
Yeah. Well, we've had a great 6-7 months getting to know each other. This man is an incredible man of faith. And what's really incredible, Todd, is each person involved with this movie turned out to be a man of faith or a woman of faith.
Yeah.
I didn't do that on purpose, but God brought it together like that. Yeah. So, Travis, I honor you as well, brother. You're a great man.
Amen.
Very cool. Who else did you want to bring into this? Because everybody gets weaved into this story.
Well, as we were finishing up my story, we started being introduced to others across the country. It was just crazy how that happened. Again, I didn't really know exactly what this was going to be. I knew we had to tell my story, which was a travesty. In my life, it was an American travesty. For other people to hear it's almost too much to believe, but it really is happening. And so we started being introduced to other folks, and I had a chance to go on a podcast talking about my music video for Finish This Fight with a gentleman named Nate Cain. And Nate has the Raising Cain podcast on which is an amazing podcast. And we talked about that. But when we got done, he and I chatted, and he told me his story. Nate and I had actually met in Miami a couple years before, and I'd forgotten about that. But when he told me his story, I said, man, we got to include this guy. So I asked Nate if he'd like to be part of it, and he said, yeah. So let's bring Nate Cain on. Now, I introduced him in the movie as one of the least known American heroes that I've ever met in my life. And guys, he doesn't look like Superman, but the gentleman that just popped up here is an incredible American hero. Nate, welcome, buddy. Let's talk about this, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, welcome.
So
go ahead, Glenn.
Nate and I again talked. He told me my story. I said we got to have it. So Nate, in the Reader's Digest version, Tell us a little bit about you and what ended up happening to you, and people's minds are going to be blown.
Glenn's got to say the Reader's Digest version because this story is so in depth, and so I will do my best to keep it short. But in 2017, I was working as a contractor for the FBI. I was a cybersecurity subject matter expert in charge of developing and implementing their vulnerability management system. And during that time, I ended up coming across and finding out of a plot by the FBI's senior leadership to cover up crimes that had been committed by Hillary Clinton. They were investigating, and they had credible evidence, but they decided that they were going to cover it up for political reasons. I had a very difficult decision to make because I had worked really hard to get to the place where I was making the most money I'd ever made, in my career field, and the skies were the limit. And but I believed that God had put me there for a reason for that time, and so I decided to blow the whistle. And unfortunately, because of the circumstances of the senior leadership at the FBI at the time being involved in this, to include the intelligence community inspector general, it meant that I couldn't go through the normal procedures for blowing the whistle. So I actually had to make a clandestine meeting with Devin Nunes, as senior staffer, and I had to sneak classified documents out of the FBI to get to him. Now that was all legal because I had a courier card and I was handing off documents to somebody authorized to have them. But there were still major risks that were involved if I had been stopped along the way. And then he asked me the unthinkable. He asked me to go back in to get more. And so I did go back in. I came out a second time with an intelligence report that proved what the FBI knew and when they knew it in regards to uranium-1. And at that point, I got cut off from comms. And so now I was in a real predicament. And so I ended up having to hire an attorney, go through the process of the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, but doing it through the DOJ IG, which had never been done before. So I was the first to ever do that. And it was, and to his credit, the Inspector General Horowitz was an honorable man. He went to great lengths to protect my identity and allow me to maintain my anonymity. We eventually did get these documents, all of them, to both the House and Senate Intel committees. And it took almost a year, by the way, to get through this process. But by the end of it, 4 months later, the House changed hands into the Democrats. Devin Nunes was no longer the chairman, and now Adam Schiff had been placed into the chairmanship. He shut down the investigations that they were doing. And I don't know, how, but somehow the FBI found out who I was, and I was raided a month later. And so I had 16 FBI agents in my home, and the agent, the special agent in charge, basically made it his personal mission in life to try to destroy mine. And he went after me, went after my kids, went after my family, tried to destroy my reputation. It was a horrifying experience that I don't ever want to go through again, but we survived it. There was a lot of miracles that took place. I mean, just unbelievable miracles that there's no way it was not God's hand guiding us and protecting us and directing us along. And in the end, I ended up in the sitting inside of Senator he had just been moved to, or just been placed in the chairman of the Senate Judiciary's chair, and Lindsey Graham. And I was sitting in his office talking to his investigative counsel, and with my lawyer present, giving, basically laying out for them what had happened, because some of the things were so egregious, including, by the way, and you'll appreciate this as an attorney, the Daily Caller who broke the story, and the only reason they knew to contact my lawyer was they had somebody inside the New York Times that had leaked to them that the New York Times was going to write a hit piece on me, and that somebody at the FBI had leaked my information to them. And so
As
they went to him and said, hey, would you be willing to give us a scoop if we, let you get your side out first? And so my lawyer reluctantly, because he hates the press, he said, look, I don't normally do this, but I think in your case, it would probably be helpful. So he did an interview on my behalf. The story broke, and went viral. And the big thing that was kind of shocking was the Daily Caller had sent a request, a FOIA request to the Maryland magistrate to ask if the judge had been notified that I was a protected whistleblower under the ICWPA. And a Clinton-appointed federal judge put a seal on that answer and then sealed her justification for putting a seal on that answer.
Oh, you get
so it doesn't get much more corrupt than that.
Lord.
But in the end,
no, it doesn't.
The Lindsey Graham's office, his lead investigative counsel, they did what they did, and I don't know what they did, but I can just tell you that FBI agent was no longer an agent within 2 weeks after that.
The special agent in charge was no longer an agent. That's a big thing. Those are GS-15s. So that's no small feat. And I got to tell you, you are one of these guys we call the one that was really transformative and disruptive what it is you did, because America then understood that the corrupt politician was taking uranium and transferring it to other countries, like our most valuable, highest security mineral or whatever you call it, radioactive isotope, selling it to foreign governments. And my understanding is that actually ended up in Russia, if memory serves.
Yes, it did.
But I mean, my Lord, you want to talk about corrupting? She didn't even seek the permission or approval of any of the agencies that were required to. She was just handed it over.
Well, what's worse is,
I mean, if that doesn't show
she's
you,
as Secretary of the State, basically it was the chair of the
diplomatic pouch of uranium.
That's right.
I mean, it's just
the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. had to approve it. She was the chair, and another non-voting member of that board was none other than the FBI director at that time, which was Robert Mueller. So Robert Mueller was involved. Comey was involved.
Yes.
You had.
Well, how about the Commerce guy, Treasury? So you got State, Commerce, Treasury, DOD.
And guess who investigated that whole thing and did nothing about it?
I can't imagine.
Robert Rosenstein, who at the time that I blew the whistle was essentially the Attorney General, because remember, Jeff Sessions had recused himself of everything Russia.
That's right.
So it was a nightmare scenario to have to navigate those waters to get that information to the right people.
Well, if you're here, you're alive, you're free by the grace of God.
Yeah, barely.
Because that was a big deal. Yeah, literally. That's what I'm saying. I mean, all of these stories, are the kind that people want to hear, because, it's acts like that. It's acts like making the movie when you had no idea how you're going to do it. It's those leaps of faith, right? Is that human quality, and it's not shared around. Not everybody seems to have it. Certainly not the gangsters like Robert Mueller. It's literally that leap of faith, and it's really beautiful, and it's contagious, and that's what I very much appreciate about that.
Well, Nate Cain is a hero. I do want to give the redneck interpretation in case there's any rednecks like me that are listening that need a little clarification. He walked out of the FBI with information that was accusing the FBI of a cover-up, which is bad enough, but the cover-up, was Hillary Clinton. This guy walked out with info on Hillary Clinton. How many tried to do that?
And he's still alive.
Well, they tried to kill him twice. They did try to kill him twice. He was poisoned. He lived through that, thank God. But that's what I want people to understand. This is real. This is not conspiracy. Yeah, we went to the source of truth.
Oh, it's a conspiracy. It's absolutely a conspiracy. It's just
not a theory. Yeah, it's a proven conspiracy. We went to the source of truth because this man is the source of when it comes to this challenge. Yeah. So, Nate, I appreciate you, brother. I love you.
Yeah, I want to pick that up at some point, Nate, because justice has yet to come to that lady or anybody else involved in covering it up. So I want to make it a mission, to make sure that doesn't get dead, buried, and forgotten.
Yeah, we need to send some people to Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you want to talk about sedition and treason, the abuse of her office, I guarantee she had no oath of office. We found out nobody in the executive branch during the Biden administration had one, and it seems like that was a habit going back a long way. So if they're not serving us, who are they serving?
And,
obviously,
you know, the information I brought out it mostly dealt with money laundering, public corruption, securities and exchange fraud, and terrorism financing. All of this information was in multiple cases. It was being reviewed by at least 3 separate field offices, had case numbers, all of that. And the crazy thing about it is that, you know, once you go public as a whistleblower, and what ends up happening, you end up getting basically a bunch of whistleblowers reaching out to you because they're wanting to know how they can get out, you know, and survive. And so there's a lot more that has been pieced together that I've never talked about publicly that has come, you know, that has come together from talking with other whistleblowers that had information. And this definitely needs to be further investigated without a doubt.
We are the home of whistleblowers. Melissa McAtee, who you just met, is a Pfizer whistleblower. We've got a lot of them. So you're most welcome here, and we'll chase up the rest of that story.
Sir. Well, from this point on, I mean, we've already got a heck of a movie. And then we're introduced to some other people. Now, somebody mentioned a guy named Craig Sawman Sawyer and asked me if I'd ever heard of him. And I'm like, well, heck yeah, I've heard of him. He's
I was going to say, who hasn't?
Exactly. And so I got an introduction to him. And we got in touch with him and asked him if it'd be okay if we did an interview. And he just immediately said yes. And so I had a chance to sit down with Craig Sawman Sawyer. And I had no idea what I was going to get myself into. But before he just jumps right over, Melissa, if you want to bring him up, go ahead. Craig is not only a hero and a bad man, he is a godly man. I had no idea. This is a warrior for God, and I'm honored to have Craig. So, Craig, we chatted a little bit about who you are and what you do, and in case anybody doesn't know you, tell us about it, man. What do you think?
Well, look, I'm just a used-up veteran with a broken heart for children, and I want people to stop harming and selling and raping the children, and that's really what I'm about now. So I came to that through military special operations, counterterrorist service, and then federal law enforcement. Ended up being a national security whistleblower on a senior SES level executive from the top of the FBI.
Wow.
And they did fire him for exactly what I'd reported him for, which was gross mismanagement, but not until after he was allowed to use terror tactics against my wife and children, when he would send me to DC from Las Vegas to sit at an empty desk for 30 days at a time as punishment for blowing the whistle on it. So there's retaliation as well. Nobody's done anything to him except fire him, and but because he was ruining the careers of all my best agents. But so long story short, I went from federal law enforcement into high threat mobile security over in the war zones for the Department of State and the intelligence community, and started doing film and television work to try to get to stay home more, to raise our own children instead of being gone so much. And just along that journey, started meeting so many people that are now on my board of directors, board of advisors, quality people that care about the truth, that care about the people and the children. And we founded Veterans for Child Rescue to expose and combat child trafficking in the United States. And I felt like it was some kind of sick joke that the government would send me to 60 countries around the world when child trafficking was run at industrial scale right here in the continental United States, right under our noses. And I felt betrayed. I felt hornswoggled.
Yeah.
If you want to use a funny word for it, but it very dark and serious crime, and it generates more revenue than all pro sports combined. So it's far larger scale than the average American is aware of. And so we filmed a documentary, Contraland, so that we could show everybody what's happening. And in filming that, we started running joint sting operations with federal and local law enforcement, arresting predators. And man, they came running by large numbers. So we continue to do that. We got 29 child predator arrests with 100% conviction rate. We have 87 warrants for more, and we're continuing to expand. We've got a radio show defending our children, and a TV show, and billboards, and NASCAR placement, and public speaking, and all this kind of thing, and investigations and rescues. So we're doing all that we can. And where we fit into this picture with Glenn is everybody that you've got on the show today are agents of truth and change, men of action who see a wrong and choose to be part of the solution rather than the turning away. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I immediately rogered up to stand up next to Glenn and these other fine people, because we're all kind of wired to do the same thing in a different way. And we all love the Creator. We want love to prevail and truth to prevail. And we're willing to work and fight to bring that. And that's why I celebrate this. And I'm grateful to be on your show today, Todd.
Oh, it's such a joy to have you. You and I had bumped into each other in a tangential way, in so much of my law firm was trying to rescue some kids from Child Protective Services. And that was the first time that I really came to understand, holy crap, our government is in the child trafficking business. They were grabbing kids out of hospitals, out of homes, and move them away without any court orders or anything else, and then trafficking these kids. These are state agencies, Child Protective Services. And if a hospital wants to experiment on your child, they will do so. And if you say no, they will call CPS, who will then steal your child, and they're gone. And this, Craig, I think this case was one where it was actually a cop in California. And these gangsters tried to steal his child out of the hospital to give her, I think she was a 1-year-old with they wanted to give her a lung transplant. I mean, this is how insane it is. And in the process of all these rescues and things that you've been involved in, did you also run into, they're using kids for body parts?
Yeah, the organ harvesting. Yeah,
in America,
it is a factual reality, and it's not that well of a kept secret. Nor is it a well kept secret because it's been discussed in open congressional session that Health and Human Services is contracting the covert movement, trafficking of children to predators. That wasn't recently. That was a couple of years ago by now, and it still hasn't been stopped. So I celebrate this administration coming in, and I pray, and I'm sharing intel with them and steering them towards the corruption. But I do pray that it comes to a screeching halt very, very quickly, because the scale at which the harm is happening is staggering in our own beloved USA. So it's a time for change, and I celebrate it.
It shows, and we're gonna have another gentleman come on here in a minute. But there's a commonality here, gentlemen, and that is, number one, that you are the ones that stood. You're the ones that doing things nobody's paying you to do because you actually give a damn. That is the best of the human spirit. It is an American spirit too, by the way. So God bless you all for those efforts. I really want this to be contagious. When I say this, your stories, this podcast, I want people to understand you too can make a difference, because every one of you have done that.
Well, that's true, Todd. And, I think Craig's story was the hardest one for me to share in the movie, because there was no humor with that. There's nothing you can do to soften that blow. And when you really consider what's taken place, and you really consider it from the source of truth, which is the guy that's involved with shutting it down, it blows my mind that the country I've loved my whole life would be involved with this. So this one was the toughest one, but it needed to be said for several reasons. People need to be aware, but it's time to slap ourselves and wake up from our complacency and realize the evil that has taken over at the very top of this country, and it's not going to change. Trump is one man. He's a great dude. I love him, but he's one man. Without us and without you standing up, it's not going to be fixed. So Craig is a warrior, and I'm proud to now call him my friend.
Beautiful.
So I appreciate you, Craig.
You too, brother.
So with all that being said, we had several other stories involved. We just didn't have time to bring everybody on today, but I wanted to give you a flavor, Todd, of what this movie is about. And can I ask you a question? You haven't had a chance to see the movie. What were your thoughts about the movie?
I really like the style in which it came out, because, as you said, it's some parts of it are a little bit humorous, but it's really captivating because it feels like almost like the Borat movies, where you're kind of getting followed around. It's not Hollywood at all, but it's really authentic is what comes to my mind. And I think that was really compelling, because when you're telling these stories, this isn't made up. I mean, this crap happened. and is happening. And this is personal sacrifice. And I'm glad that it comes across that way, albeit, Glenn, you've got a very cool demeanor about yourself that doesn't offend people, right? It makes you want to kind of just keep watching and see what comes next. So I really, really like the movie. And I'm not sure I would even characterize it as a documentary as such, but it delivers the points and it delivers the stories beautifully. And my hope is that when people see this, that they're motivated in their own lives to do something, because every one of us have something we can do, even if it's praying for others or grabbing a clip of your movie and sharing it around. Because the only way we take our planet back, not just our republic, is by this, our personal involvement, our personal commitment to God above to rectify these situations, or our society is lost. It's not just our country. Yeah. This is like the days of Babylon. And if we don't reverse course, what happened last time, it was God brought the flood. Yeah. So it's really upon us to do this. God will lend you a hand, as you've well demonstrated, but it's up to us.
It is. And I ask you that for a reason, because you don't have anything to gain by giving a true review of what you
not at all.
I appreciate that. So we want to get the stories out there. These guys are powerful. These are warriors, man. I'm standing next to giants. But there's also another facet of what we're doing. And 3 years ago, I did a show with General Flynn. We were raising money for an organization who at that time was putting an exoskeleton on a paralyzed veteran to allow him to walk again. And when I saw this Marine wheeled up on stage who'd been paralyzed in Afghanistan 7 years prior, was able to stand up and walk around the room at a pretty brisk pace, telling the crowd that he now gets a chance to someday walk his daughter down the aisle, that he can reach the top shelf for his wife. Now he feels like a man. And boys, I'm in the corner crying like a baby, tears dripping out of my beard. It broke me, and I'll never get over that. And so I ended up writing a song. It was at the time called Soldier Strong. We've changed that now to Finish This Fight. But that's where this whole thing came from. And while we were getting ready to shoot the music video, I contacted that organization, and they're not really helping veterans much anymore. And so I was left with a choice. I mean, okay, the reason I'm doing this is to shine a light on this organization. They're not doing it. What do I do? Well, the only logical choice is to do it ourselves.
Yes.
And so we formed the Finish This Fight Productions, LLC. We're forming Finish This Fight Foundation now, and we're going to put an exoskeleton on a young man. And we have that young man here. I want to introduce you a man named Joshua Holm, who in 2003 in Iraq was injured, was able to walk for many years with the help of steel braces. But I'm going to let him tell his story about what happened there and what this exoskeleton is going to be able to do for him. Joshua, my brother, welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hey guys, I'm so glad to be here. Todd, thank you so much for
my honor.
Just heart, man. There's three keys that keep me free, guys, and so there's my faith, my family, and a future ahead. And let me tell you, this documentary, this book of seeds is basically what it is, guys. You get to pick what you want in your garden. I mean, these guys, grit, they're full of grace. But you know what? Listen, I mean, the God that we serve and the God we love, he's a God of love, but he's also a God of war. And we have war because we love. And so we're willing to go. And so as I put together my foundation and everything as well, I put together a quote, and I've changed it since meeting these guys like this, because it used to be individuals go to combat, families go to war. And now I've changed it to individuals go to combat, communities go to war. And the word for my unity field is united, noble individuals together yearning. Guys, it's a place of gathering. It's a place of just really linking arms and hearts. And so it's an honor to be here with you guys here today. Man, I went to Iraq 2003. I got shot and blown up, told I'd never walk again. But I mean, they call me the comeback kid because I've been in the wheelchair multiple times over. 25, I had a stroke, a full stroke. I was paralyzed on my side. I've regained 100% use of my left side, only 30% feeling. After I had the stroke, my wife said, "Babe, you got to find purpose through your pain." So I ended up taking the finger that I could use on my left hand and a hand that I could use, and I crippled it to be the finger. I focused on the one thing that I could do, Todd. And what I did is I wrote 8 letters to God. It became my first book called Some of My Life Lessons, which is on Amazon today. It's a 38 little page of healing and hope. But what I realized, it put grit and grace
Beautiful.
back in me, and it activated the fire back in me, so that every single day that I had to make a decision. I'm in pain. What am I going to do with pain? Pain is part of the process of your perfection. It's not it's not the purpose. It's part of the process. So pain is not meant to hurt you. It's meant to tell you and also share with you something. When you feel, that means you're still alive. You have breath.
Yeah.
I all the time, do more than breathe, live. So guys, I speak through acronyms. I have a severe traumatic brain injury, and I use what's called whole brain training, where I use parts of my brain that's not damaged to overlap everything. I have a cognitive disorder. Guys, I'm a public speaker. I've traveled the world, and for 10 years, Todd, I walked with the use of metal braces called KAFO braces, which are knee, ankle, foot orthopedic braces. That means full leg brace, like Forrest Gump, except for I had more. But literally, the thing is, for 10 years, guys, I traveled all over the country. I was doing push-ups on 2 fingers and learned how to do it with a broken back, shattered leg, stroke victim on thumbs only. 222 of 2.
Wow.
Did a campaign called #22healed, where 22 veterans were committing suicide, and that was only 26 states reporting. As a resiliency coach, I was traveling around working with injured military, pro athletes, mixed martial arts champions, and helping people overcome. I was teaching them empowerment coaching, mind, body, and spirit empowerment. Basically, not look at the negative and erase negative, but look to the negative to find true grounding, and then have a gauge to have positivity to it and be able to bring empowerment to it by gauging negative and positive to have power. And you do that every day. 86,400 seconds. That's how many seconds we have per day. And it's like
86,000.
86,400.
And we're not going to waste one of them. And it doesn't sound like you have either. You know, that's really inspiring to me. And I hope others that suffer disabilities find strength in this, because boy, you got to hand it to you. I mean, you were effectively, you could have been a vegetable for the rest of your life, but you rewired your brain and worked through it. I mean, this is the testament to willpower as much as it is to God's divine hand. Getting through it. And so now what you're after, and I feel embarrassed to say this, the VA hasn't given you an exoskeleton. I mean, where are they in all of this?
Absolutely. Okay, so like if I would have chose years ago to be an athlete for the VA, which they wanted me to be, then the thing is, they were a poster child of me. I would have been there. I'd be getting this, that, and the other. But it's limitations. The left hand does not talk to the right hand, so there's no form of communication that are properly handling in things. And so it's like you can make the personal sacrifice. Like me, I was an athlete that never competed, and a lot of people thought I couldn't compete because I just wasn't at the skill level. They don't understand. To do thumb only push-ups, there's mixed martial arts champions that can't do that. There's people that have no disability that physically cannot do what I was doing with full disability, because I did it for 3 things: because I can, because I cared, committed to seeing a change. Change is not hard, consistent and persistent that you're going to create. Literally, you create the atmosphere you walk, breathe, and live in. It's more than just a coach aspect. It's more than just, it's literally a fuel that is keeping you burning. That's what my first book is about. Some of my life lessons. It's talking about turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones.
Yes.
Like I live my life outside myself, because what I've learned because believe it or not, I know I'm speaking a lot here today, but the thing is, June 28th, I had no voice for 33 days. I was 5 minutes away from I had 19 of 25 centimeters. My esophagus was torn. So,
Lord above.
With I saw Travis. I couldn't speak to Travis. I had to write on a tablet for 33 days. And then God gave me a voice. And during that 33 days, Todd, what happened was my wife was given a voice. Okay. And then I learned how to value my voice, because I was starting in a place of defeat every day to get to a place of victory. Now, every single day, I get up, I clap my hands, I say, it's a great day to be alive. And then I start my day every single time, because I'm living.
You are living. And I think that's half of this message here. And the other part that strikes me as you're talking, Josh, is that everybody here has a relationship with God. It's our personal relationship. And I'm curious, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, what was that transformative moment in your life where you understood you can't get through this without God, and you made that commitment? Help me and I'm in. You know, I went through that myself, been dead more than once. And it was only with that commitment, that moment you go, okay, that's it, I surrender. Did you have that moment?
Absolutely. It was January 16, 2003. I know the exact date because right before I went to war. And then people look at it because they don't understand that the book of Seeds, you know what I'm saying, this garden that we have, the holy Bible that we have, guys, it's an instruction, it's a compass, but you still have to put the work in it. Because if you plant it one day and you never give it sun and you never give it water consistently, it's going to die. So I said a prayer January 16, 2003, but it's been a daily commitment, and the Lord began to bring not condemnation, conviction, and I begin to get things right. And repentance means that we're turning from and turning to.
Yes, that's right.
From the negativity. And then so after I wrote this book, literally, now I have no gumption but to rely on the Lord, Todd, because I can't do it on my own. I mean, I can't feel from mid. I mean, yes, I do a lot. Yes, I've got the gun show going because guess what? I'm pushing myself beyond the limits of what I should be doing. But you know what? I'm doing it because I am so committed to see it change. And to me,
beautiful.
Honestly,
that's beautiful.
He hit it right there, man. That is where faith is found. When you find yourself in a place where if God doesn't, I'm doomed. That's where faith is found. And then you have a choice. You either feed faith or you feed fear. Whatever you feed is what's going to grow. So
they're mutually exclusive. Yeah, that's right, Glenn. And you are too. And what I take away from all this and the wonderful team that you brought to us today is that every one of us can make our difference. It's by that commitment. It's by getting involved. It's by finding your courage to stand against whatever the wind that's blowing against you is, and to do it gracefully. And that's what I see in all of you. And I really admire it. I just pray that when people are faced with this, this choice, because everybody's going to have it in life, choose wisely. Because you said it just a second ago, Glenn. You either choose faith or you choose fear. Fear leads, you might as well go and dig a hole and wait for the end. Faith means you fight on. And the reality is this: we are in the fight for our species. We are in an extinction level event. It is not over. Mr. Trump is great and helpful, but that's not done. There's a long way to go here, ladies and gentlemen. So jump in the fight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good, Glenn. What else did you want to share before we bring back Melissa with some questions?
Brother, we tried to be very respectful of your time. We thank you so much for the opportunity. Sure. This is the story, very abbreviated. The movie, we had a chance to put, it's an hour and 53 minutes. It's got some comedy. It's got some very serious stuff. It's got some music. Had a chance to put some music involved in it. But at the end of the day, it's about the story, and it's about this young man, Joshua Holm. And I'm asking people to make a decision to spend $10.99 on something that has value. Travis has said this many times, and so I'm going to mimic him. We have a choice. We make our vote with our wallet. Do we vote towards Babylon and buy a Hollywood movie, basically? And the debauchery and things that they're putting out? Or do you take $10.99, less than the cost of driving through McDonald's drive-through and poisoning yourself, and bring home something that has value, that has purpose? And oh, by the way, 50% of the profit that we make from this movie is going to help that young man right there. There's an actual place that this is going to, and you're seeing him right here.
That counts. Use of funds. Well, here's the deal. Here's my commitment to you. Anybody on CloutHUB that's seeing this, if you want to contribute, I'll contribute alongside of you. Just give me a DM at CloutHUB. We'll do it together for each and every one of you. I'm all in. I am grateful for all of you coming here, sharing your stories. Every one of you is invited back because you all have compelling stories. And I think our audience would really like to hear those and draw inspiration. And for those of you in the Vaxxchoice CloutHUB family, here's your moment to make a difference, because this is a really good cause. We got to support these guys. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for helping others understand the importance of the relationship with God. and our country, and frankly, the Second Amendment that guarantees those rights, because we have them. So with that said, God bless you all. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Phil. So long.